Let me stop. Let me stop you. I'm sorry, Sam. We're going right now to the FCC prison camp in Florence, Colorado.
Let's
Gary
do that.
Walker, CEO of IRP Solutions, is on the phone. Gary, good morning. How are you?
Yes. Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. What is it that you want my audience to understand about what has happened to you and your company up to this point?
Well, my first message would be that the United States citizens, our public, needs to be concerned because our justice system is not alive and well. It is badly in need of repair. People get thrown into prison, lives destroyed for doing everyday business.
Now, you were convicted of wire fraud and mail fraud, and we have Ms. Solomon on the line with us, you're one of your attorneys. So talk about how you get charged with wire fraud and mail fraud just doing standard everyday business.
Well, I'll tell you, conspiracy and wire and mail fraud are catch-alls for the government. When they want to get you on something, if they don't have solid evidence for anything else, they will trump up some charges. They will find some way to misconstrue what you've done to be conspiracy or mail and wire fraud. So that's always their catch-all.
From a federal prison.
Okay, so, but I need to understand, what actually did they accuse you of doing?
Well, their accusations were that the business we were doing with staffing agencies was all a cover and a sham just to get services from them. Their charges really never made sense to us and still don't this day because we did not benefit financially, monetarily, from having contracts and using the services of contracting companies. They allege that we entered into these contracts on the basis of fraud just to have them perform services for us, or to get monies from them, which doesn't make any sense because the monies that were paid out from the staffing companies went to the people that were doing software development, testing, and other things related to our business. Those monies did not go to myself or any other of the 5 gentlemen who are locked up here wrongly with me in federal prison camp.
So Ms. Solomon, help me out here. When the company comes back from the meeting in Washington, they realize they've got to get more staff on board because they've got deadlines to hit in terms of software development. So they go to some staffing agencies and say, we need some software engineers with the following qualifications. A company provides them with those individuals. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a normal staffing business procedure. When you're running an IT company, you hire out staffing individuals through a staffing agency. There's nothing unnormal about that.
And one of the things, this is Gary, one of the things that we had planned to do in our trial was to bring on a staffing expert who had, I believe, 30 years of experience in the staffing industry to tell them what the normal operations were for staffing. He was a cornerstone of our defense, and the judge did not allow him to testify on our behalf as an expert. That's one of our points of appeal because there's no reason that person should not have been allowed to testify on our behalf as an expert.
Now, help me out if I have the facts wrong. You reached an agreement with the president of the staffing company that their payment would be deferred based upon your getting paid from Homeland Security on the $100 million contract that you were trying to land. Is that correct?
That was the agreement with most of the staffing companies. We entered into these agreements by filling out credit applications that indicated that we did not have money in the bank. But what we did have was an asset, which was our software.
Right.
And upon completion or closing of a contract, we would have the funds to pay them. We had planned all along to be able to pay these companies. We were out doing marketing and sales efforts, not only with the federal government, but state and local law enforcement agencies so that we could bring in revenues to pay these staffing bills.
And people need to understand this is common practice. A lot of times companies will use the contract or use the product as the collateral in order to get what the operating either funds or whatever it is that they need, and they pay it on the back end. That's common practice.
That is common practice, and it was very clear in our case that a small company with no other assets than their intellectual property being the software, and the way we were being received by the law enforcement agencies, that was the real draw for the staffing companies. They saw dollar signs at the end of the rainbow if we could close one of these large contracts, because they would have continuing business from us for years.
Well, I need to go to a break. Hopefully, you'll still be on the line when we come back. If not, we'll pick it back up with Sam, I'm sorry, with we'll pick it back up with Sam and Cliff and Gwen. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Wilmer Leon here, coming up on 24 past the hour. The IRP 6 is what we're talking about right now. You can Google it. You can go to my Facebook fan page, Dr. Leon's Prescription at facebook.com, and you can find the link there. More on the other side. Keep it locked right here, Sirius XM 110. We're going to be talking about Nelson Mandela. We're back. We're back at 26 past the hour. We will be talking about the passing of Madiba, Mr. Nelson Mandela, in the third hour. We're going right back to our live line, Gary Walker, CEO of IRP Solutions. Gary, here's what I need to understand. You, and I'm rushing through this because I know we could lose you at any moment. So you enter into agreements with staffing companies, and you're going to pay the staffing companies on the back end once the contract is signed and you receive your money from the government. That's common practice. What happened? Who was it that came after you, and why did they come after you?
Well, we learned after the fact that someone who had formerly worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Greg Goldberg, had contacted to the U.S. Attorney's Office after he left based on some calls he had received from some staffing companies. He had basically started his own personal investigation after leaving the U.S. Attorney's Office and gave them information
from a federal prison.
Gave them information that we were behind on staffing bills. He called other staffing companies that we were engaged with, and he got them to provide statements that we weren't paying them.
And were you, in fact, and let me ask Gwen this question, were they, in fact, behind, or based upon the agreements that had been signed, they were, their billing was, or their payments were as they were contracted for?
Okay, that would be something that Gary and them would be able to answer.
Okay.
Right, and so we have a mixed bag of agreements with staffing companies. Some were standard payment terms, where others were based on being paid upon sale of the software or completion of a major contract. So we had staffing companies that we were in the process of paying, some that we were behind on, and some that just had outright agreements that we would pay them upon sale of the software with a large government agency.
What motivated Mr. Goldberg, then former Department of Justice attorney? Was there some relationship between Goldberg and any of the other companies that were bringing these charges? Are they in fact conspiring against you? What's the issue here?
Well, again, after the fact, we learned that Mr. Goldberg had relationships with persons in the Department of Justice, business relationships, as well as their former professional relationships. And what he did was illegal. It was a violation of federal law to do what he did after leaving the U.S. Attorney's Office, to basically start his own investigation and provide the U.S. Attorney's Office with information garnered from his own personal investigation. That is violation of federal law. And we also learned that of Mr. Goldberg's associated with our judge, Christine Arguello. We provided a motion that Judge Arguello recused herself because of her relationship with Mr. Goldberg, and during trial she said she did not know Mr. Goldberg well. Well, later in the newspaper, Mr. Goldberg said that I know Christine Arguello very well. And so he substantiated our point that she dismissed when she refused to recuse herself as a judge in our trial. So there were a litany of improprieties that went on there.
Wow.
And Wilmer, I just wanted to add on to what Gary Walker's stating. As far as the debt itself, it was a civil debt, and that was established through the FBI when they originally tried to seek charges against the gentleman. The FBI in Denver, Colorado did come back and state that it was a civil debt and they were not going to do any further investigation on it. And then for some reason in Colorado Springs, FBI agent John Smith decided that he was going to pursue it further, and he was additional in, bringing about charges against the gentleman for criminal charges. And I do want to also note that during the entire trial, first of all, the gentleman did represent themselves pro se, and during the trial, I came in at the appellate process, and the gentleman did do a very good job of representing themselves. But during the whole trial, the government never proved that the gentleman, that the staffing agencies ever received any fraudulent timesheets, which they were alleging that had taken place. That had never occurred, and the government never proved that under the wire fraud, mail fraud charges that they brought about.
So, Gary, you said early in the discussion that none of the monies that were paid to you, or all of the salaries that you paid to the contracted developers actually went to the developers.
No, we just have 60 seconds on that beat. But what happened is they submitted timesheets for their work performed. We paid the software developers, testers, and other professionals working in the office, as well as the IRP 6 and others who work technology jobs in the office. So we gathered regular staffing income as well as the other employees. What I'm saying is that there was no other income other than our work that came to the 6 of us.
Okay.
We're down to 30 seconds now.
Gary, be strong. We will move this forward, and we'll do everything in our power to keep this in front of the public.
We appreciate your voice in this.
Hey, man, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Wow, that's Gary Walker, CEO of IRP Solutions, one of the IRP 6. We got him at the FCC prison camp in Florence, Colorado.